like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands that we're meeting on today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I would like to pay our respects to elders past and present, and I would like to acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded and that we meet today on stolen land. Another year, a second installment. It's absolutely insane. I will say that I will not get this. This is not a regular thing.
Where's my third book?
You're exactly a year.
Hey?
You writing the fifth one yet?
No, not yet. Fifth one will be coming soon. So this will not be. I will rest assured, like, this will not be a comment. I'm not Brandon Sanderson, and I refuse to be compared to a book writing android that was clearly sent from the future to kill me. So, but yes, it's been really crazy. I will say, I was saying just before that, and I've said a few times that one of the most insane things was obviously after the uphill battle that was getting the first one installed. The first one published was the moment of getting the second, just essentially sending off the second one to the publisher was concerning. To put it lightly, was just definitely a moment of like, hey, here's the book, and she's like, cool, we'll get it published. I'm like, is that it? Are we done? So there was the song "War Is Over" singing in the back of the head. But it's been a really, really incredible journey getting this far, and a huge thank you to, of course, all of you and everyone at home for supporting me with this journey. It's been really, really cool. The thank yous, a huge thank you again to my wonderful, supportive parents and step-parents. And extended family. It's been, you guys are always very excited for the things that I'm doing and show a lot of love and support, and I really, really do appreciate that. A huge thank you to my wonderful friendship circle for all of your support as well. It's always really cool hearing you guys' excitement for the things that I'm doing. And for all the people who follow me, whether it be on socials or Ko-fi or whatever, again, all of your support means the world to me. Yes, biggest to my wonderful wife. I was saving it for the last one. There's a gravitas for the last one. If you didn't notice, I did not prepare a speech. There was a lot of things in this moment where, like, I feel like my brain's just sort of been like, and then suddenly, like, last 2 days was just like, hey, book launches this week, and I'm like, oh. So it's been a mad rush the last couple of days, but yes, of course, the person that I absolutely could not do this, I really like for those.
We'll talk about this later.
For all your support with everything. Any questions? We go through? Yo.
After reading the book, how do you? How do you?
I should have put down some sort of like spoiler warning coming at the door.
I'm sorry, open the door.
Because I can.
No, I absolutely love it. Incredible story. Takes on new and evolving characters and expanding the world just incredibly. How far in advance did you plan, and where does that sort of fall in, or are you continually growing that plan?
You say like how far in advance have I planned?
Yeah, like when you were writing and when you are now.
There is the figment of a skeleton for a lot of the rest of the story, and there's a lot of stuff that like the sort of the story that this leads into and the other events that this leads into. I don't think I could write a full timeline of it, so I think there's going to be a lot of points of going, cool, we're going to take some key moments, piece them together, and like, a lot to be implied through, sort of context and what do you call it, like, not everything's going to be written out. and that's the hard bit. Is suddenly going, cool. What do I have to write out? What do I want to write?
What do you leave to our imagination?
Sorry.
What do you leave to our imagination?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's sort of like, what do I go? Hey, yeah, this happened. Sort of, because there are a lot of things that I think, and I think there are a lot of events that works better. Because suddenly that also leads to, for those of you who may not be aware, as per the screen, I am currently building also a TTRPG setting book, which is the same world as the novels about 500 years later, so after Ragnarok and much, much later down the line. So I think the issue is I have is like, as we've seen with a lot of, what do you call it, fictional settings and fictional worlds, as you know, one of the main fandoms that you and I share, the more you make canon, the more obsessive people get over that, and the more less creativity people feel they have in that space. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, cool, these are things that I want to put in, that I want to have there because they're important to me, and I really like that. Also things like obviously this is going into Ragnarok, which is the Norse apocalypse, and the one thing I do like about retelling Ragnarok or the Norse myths is the Norse myths have a lot of stories, not a lot of details. So it's just like you read the myth of Ragnarok and it's very much like, such and such went to here and they killed each other, and then they went there and they killed each other, and then this person went and never came back, and you're like, cool. So there's a lot of flesh to put onto that. And there's a lot of ways that you can change that as well, which I find very interesting. But that's all stuff that, again, I'm picking and choosing, going, okay, what do I want to solidify and what do I want to leave? Sort of, it might have happened that way, but who knows?
Walking in with an understanding of Norse mythology and that sort of storytelling was really interesting. Being able to pick and be like, I see, where is it all connected? It's brilliant.
Exactly. Any other questions? Yo.
How did you find the process of writing the second book? If you did find it different, how was it different from writing first?
Well, this is where we get into the interesting factor, which is they were originally one book. So I actually wrote the original, like the first book, which was the first two books. And then it was like 170, 180,000 words. Once again, love it to pieces. My wonderful wife read it through from start to finish and went, yeah, it's great. It's really long. And we then also looked up online, and one of the main things we found was that was saying like, publishers will not touch a debut fantasy novel over 90,000 words unless there is some phenomenal writing in there, or like a very interesting concept. We basically tore the book in half and rewrote the first and second bit to make it more of okay, if you read the first one and you stop there, it's still a fulfilling story, and you have your right, you can take it from there, but if you read the first one, then it can lead into the second one. So really, when one of the main reasons that I'd say the second one is out at the speed it is because at the time the first one came out, the second one, at least the first draft was done, because I literally just had to go, okay, let's move some scenes around, let's, re-edit this and redo the intro and the ending so that it all sort of fits into this area. So yeah, like writing the second one, I'd say, depending on whether or not you include that original writing process, it was basically the same or possibly easier in that regard. But yeah, yes?
Given that the first draft of the first book was now 2 books, have you written the second book so that it also like encapsulates like the ending of like an arc, like book 1 and 2?
Yes.
Or does that lead into the sequel novels that will come?
I would say like there's in my mind, I would say if you read book 1 and 2 back to back, it very possibly feels like, I would not be surprised if it feels like one book. So, like obviously trying to rewrite obviously like heavily putting into the start of book 2 to make it feel again like, okay, we're getting back into the story, we're getting back into things. It's got its own sort of rise and fall. But yeah, I would say it very much reads as overall that it reads sort of almost like a slight dip in the middle, but then an overreaching arc. Yeah.
So, as someone who hasn't read the books, as someone who does have an interest in fantasy and like the Norse side of things, what was sort of your inspiration for writing books in the first place? Just as a retelling, or wanting to add something new to the mythos, or?
Yeah, like so Norse mythology's been an interest of mine since like primary school. Like it's been like we did one class in primary school of mythology, we did one school play about the Norse gods, and that was it. I was like, cool, anything I can get, just
Yeah.
Then yeah, like I've been, and the same thing, I've been writing and telling stories, I'm sure my parents will tell you about, like when I was like 10, they got me a dedicated storytelling chair. Which, yeah, no, that was me. And then started writing just as sort of something to do and fell in love with it. Retelling the Norse myths, it was very much in that line of like, write what you know. And to me, that was Norse mythology.
Safe space.
It's also an area that I've seen, as much as, like, there's this, as much as it's sort of like there's so much subjectivity about it and all that sort of stuff, there's a lot of Norse mythology that I've seen that's sort of, I don't know, I'm never sure about it. Like to me it's like sort of like the best representation we've ever got, in my mind, that we've ever gotten of Norse mythology has been the new God of War games. It's just phenomenal. But yeah, and it was just something that, like with the Norse myths, it was something that, like I said, I saw something that I could flesh out in a really interesting way to actually delve into characters and make it almost this like sort of Warhammer Horus Heresy style sort of story. So yeah, like that was it really. I will say the inspiration for, in that same vein, the inspiration for making it a sort of like a techno-fantasy story, so it's like postmodern, post-apocalyptic, low technology sort of thing, was partially to get away from the historical accuracy police.
Yeah.
Which I count myself among. Because it's very much like, any time that Rose and I have watched, any show to do with Vikings, and it was just like, nope.
Actually.
Oh, the main one I remember, the main point I always remember was in the show The Last Kingdom, and there's the opening scene when there's like this transition where it goes from him being a boy to him being a man, and he comes out of a river and pulls on a t-shirt. And I was just like, done, out. And I left the room and we never watched it again. So yeah.
With Vikings then.
No. Vikings got like, there was like the opening scene and I'm like, okay, this is all right. And then it got further, like, no, okay. Which, it's understandable, but at the same time, anyway, we're not getting into that conversation. I'll be here for 2 hours. So yeah, and also I saw a space of like, it was something that I hadn't seen before, really, was the idea of like that Norse with this sort of dystopian techno-fantasy grit to it, and I thought that was a shame in an untapped market. So yeah, that was the main sort of space for that.
So you mentioned earlier about having to break the what was originally one book into two. Do you feel that your original vision was somewhat diminished by that, a la Peter Jackson's Hobbit films, or do you feel it was perhaps refined in a more appropriate sense?
Love that, because I really love the Hobbit movies. Everyone's like, oh, the Hobbit movies. I'm just like, I actually really enjoyed them. No, I think, if anything, like, there was definitely a point that you sort of feel when doing that, like especially rewriting the intro to the second book, and there was no, like, that was the only point that I really felt like I was padding anything out or diminishing. Like it was still a this full story arc, it was still what I envisioned, and it added some elements because I had to turn around and go, okay, we've got a bit of room to move now because I've got, I've got these two halves of the book. I did a bit more editing, and I had, a few extra pages that I could be like, okay, we can add a couple of interesting scenes here, and I can do a bit more with than what I had before, because I was suddenly being like, oh, this is really long, I need to, keep it short. So yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah.
With the third book, are you planning on keeping it to this shorter form length for consistency, or now that you're no longer a debut novelist, will you go for something longer?
Was that your question too?
It was. Funny you about it.
No. So no. All of So yeah, I'll be keeping all of these ones to this length. There is one of the stories that I have planned, like one of the main characters that I have in my brain for one of the next novels, which will probably be a longer, going to try and do a sort of a longer form story. That entirely depends on how the contract holds up after these four. But yeah, so I'll be keeping the rest of them to this sort of length, definitely. Yeah.
So when do we get book 3?
Yeah.
It's not just me.
Yeah, I know. It's never just you.
It sounds like comes out, right?
Yeah. Book 3 is currently about 3/4 of the way, like first draft done. So obviously then it has to go through my own editing and beta readers and then professional editing. But yeah, at the very least will not be the weight that book 1 was, and but won't be probably as quick as book 2 was. So yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Whatever happened to that bullet?
Oh.
You remember that question?
Yeah, I do remember that question. It's funny, you walked in, I was like, is that? I don't know. But yeah,
it's
yeah, I don't know, we'll have to find out.
That bullet better come back.
It is very funny, I will say, this was a question that they put to me, Stuart put to me. Stuart has, I'll say, Stuart on the back has called me at least 3 times to yell at me.
I haven't yelled at you.
But yeah, it's interesting to me. He's asking me, he goes like, oh, so, it's first chapter, it's fine. Talking about obviously the instigating scene with Alex's mother in book 1. He turned and he's asked me, he's like, I'm just wondering what happened to the bullet. I was sitting there going like, that's really interesting, like and a few people have brought up like different details and everything, so it's very interesting to me to see details that people focus on, or the things that catch people's eye and all that sort of stuff. Which is it's been a really cool journey. Comment? Question?
Yeah. What I'm gathering from context is it's a 4-book deal. Is that correct? Has that contract limitation imposed, and the full knowledge of how long your books typically need to be, has that imposed a limitation or any constraints on your initial plan for how the books are going to pan out and what you now need to cram into those 4 books?
There's no real like what do you call it? As far as the contracts and all that stuff, there's no limitations on how long the books need to be or anything like that. For the most part, I'm just going for consistency at the moment. And also, like, it's one of those things of I don't really look at a story and go, okay, it needs to be this length or this length. I write it until it's done, sure. Essentially. So it's really like this is just the length that they naturally came out at. But yeah, no, like so it's really like the other ones. It's so the 4th book could end up if it goes down that path, it could end up being a bit longer, a bit shorter, like twice as long or whatever. I'll definitely try and at least make it longer.
Do you feel, having reached the end of the 2nd book, you've reached an appropriate midpoint, or?
Yeah, okay. Like it is at this point a how do I say it? Yes, It is at a point that I feel it's a very, it presents a very, like, with the way the plan goes, I think it presents a very satisfying, like, cool, this is, and it also, in my mind, with book 3 and leading into book 4, it starts to set up much more, like, leading into, like, the actual, like, Ragnarok and the other stories that are being told there. One of the things that I, like, one of the main goals with this book series was having that, the, visualize, like, the actual, like, real-time visualization of the, you know, the gods coming back. So you've got the first one where there's, like, it's very little, you know, there's not a lot that you've got a bit of magic going on, you've got this belief and all that stuff, and then, you know, it sort of progresses until, you know, we've got, you know, until Ragnarok starts. So suddenly, you know, I think having that was something I sat down to sort of aim to do with this series particularly, was having that gradual, like, resurgence into suddenly, like, oh, we've got actual gods on the ground with us. So yeah, I think I nailed it. Yes, wait.
Obviously, the second book hasn't been out for as long now, but it has been out. What was your favorite piece of, like, that came back to you over reading the first book? Like, your favorite, like, oh, I really like this in this way of the first book, and what feedback have you got for the second book that you really, really appreciated, and, like, how do those two things compare? As somebody who's definitely read both.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
I finished the last page of the first book just yesterday.
That's all good.
Doing better than me.
So favorite bit of the first book. Again,
I have a different question if that's too hard.
No. It's not. It's not hard. It's not a difficult question. There's a couple, and I'm trying to think of one that I can give without spoiling anything, because I'm aware there are people who have not read book 1. But the what was the one? The opening bit, like the bit that I felt that, like, reading it back, I was like, because writing it I wasn't sure about, but reading it I was like, no, that's okay, we're all right. Like that's, you know, that actually reads what was and it's fairly early in the books, that's all, but it is when Malik first gets read by Oma. That scene to me just comes back as, like, Oma was a character that I wrote very much as, like, she's this, you know, sort of, she's this mothering presence, but not in the sense of giving Malik, you know, not, how to put it, almost, yeah, like, it's not, she's not sitting there going, like, I'm not here to be your mother, but I'm here to give you that so you can keep going. Give you enough for you to keep going, but she's also in that same sense of, like, you've got to get up and do it. And so that initial reading scene, and I was very chuffed with how Oma's character came out in the end, because that was exactly what I wanted. But, and a lot of people have come back, and quite a few people have come back and said, like, hey, that, you know, love Oma. Also, like, I think I had, who was it? One of my friends came forward and talked to me about it, and he just goes, that scene, I'll just say, for those who don't, the trials scene, like, the end of the trials, when it was, there was, like, that was perfect. Like, that whole scene was gorgeous, and I absolutely love that. As far as the second book, like, you know, all has been, how to put it, positive. It's been like, all has been like, it's been the most angry, you are very good at what you do I have never gotten in my life. It is the like, you know, yeah, it's yeah, exactly. Like the how dare you at the start there was very, very on point. Like you've done a bad thing very well, and it's been good. Yeah, let's do it.
Cheers before me.
Sorry.
One down front and the white.
Oh, yes.
From a writing perspective, I think that you did very well with identifying the characters with names that aren't like, so when you read them, they're not common, so you might not identify as that as this and whatever. I think you did a really good job of that. And I was wondering, was there a tool that you used to help you and help the reader to identify them?
You should see the smile on Rose's face, right? Because she knows. All of them have Norse names that vary. Pretty much all of them have Norse names that very much align with who they are, and it very much almost describes who they are. So for those of you who don't have any sort of like familiarity with Old Norse, the easiest one to now rattle off the top of my head is obviously Bjorn, who's the head of the bear chief. Bjorn literally means bear. Ulfvald, I believe, means wise wolf. And who was the other one? Herrick means king forever. So yeah, it's like, so a lot of the points with names that I try and pick names that are like this, you know, at least with these early ones, I'm like, these are names that very much in that Old Norse translation or meaning very much represent who that character is. But yeah, so and I think it works.
Yeah.
There was a point I had to change. I think it was just one character's name last minute, fairly last minute, because one of my friends read it, who's also in the TTRPG space with me, Dungeons and Dragons space with me. Because who was it? It was Einar. Einar in the first book was originally Jester, but then someone pointed out to me that Jester and Kiri are both characters from Critical Role Campaign 2. It's like every one of your fans are going to pick that up. So I was like, okay, sorry. Yeah, it's so mainly like a lot of the names in my book are. Yeah, they're sort of like, normally I'll go through sort of Norse, lists of Norse names and go, okay, what's a name that fits this character? So again, it was like Herrick's whole thing is like, I am the head, the head of the table, I am the chief. As much as he doesn't present himself like that, that's his sort of, everyone's just like, no, Herrick's the head honcho.
Right, I'm actually going to give you a compliment. As you well know, I've got one author that I will read consistently and read their books several times. I've now read your first book 5 times.
It's lovely weather we're having.
You know the name I'm about to say, yeah?
Yes, I know.
Right. So, if anyone's ever read anything of Tolkien, this man here has, in my eyes, encapsulated everything about the Tolkien is by telling a story that gives me a visualization every time I read it. Thank you.
I can point you to at least 2 Amazon reviews that would disagree with you.
But hey, even though we disagree on certain things, everything you've written has made me visualize everything that's in that book. And every time I've read it, I visualize something completely new. So, thank you.
Have you read book 2 yet?
I'm about to, trust me. I've actually got to buy a new book 1 because mine's cooked.
We have.
I'm going to be, don't you worry.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you have a skeleton in your head for the way that the next 3, 4, 5, however many books go. Obviously, probably less so with the way book 1 and 2, I think you mentioned they were written as one. Now that sort of 3/4 of the way through book 3, have you found as you're writing it that the story has evolved in a way that you didn't have planned? And are there any sort of things that you have had previously planned that you're now like, maybe I need to revisit that going forward?
Yes, 100%. Like, it is one of those things of like, very quickly after writing, because I wrote the first book and then was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And then very quickly realized I'm like, oh, I've actually got to plan this out and make sure this all lines up and all that. It was actually like Rose who first, for she read over the first one, the original manuscript, was like, cool, I need you to write down a full, like, just dot point history of your world up until this point. And there were a couple of very blaring, very obvious issues that suddenly came up from that. So yeah, I've gone down and like written it all out, but then, and same thing like with the novels, I've sat down and mapped out sort of different scenes and different parts and all that. And yeah, there are points you suddenly get to that you're like, oh, that doesn't make sense, or like that, or then suddenly you get stuck and you're like, hang on, what if? Oh, yeah, what if like this thing? There's the ending for this for the second book got fairly heavily changed. I got like towards the end of the editing process because I was just suddenly like, wait a minute, what if, and then suddenly you've got this whole not entirely different storyline, but in my mind like a much deeper, more interesting ending to that, and a thing that leads much more into what I wanted to do with book 4 and with the like others down the path. So yeah, like there is definitely, I will say, mapping out and storyboarding. Yeah, but then also like 100%, there are times when it's just sitting there going like, the story will hit you, and you just go, okay, no, wait a minute, I can remap it later, it's fine. Yeah.
So you mentioned like book 4, possibly others. Is there stories, because the absolute dearth of different stories in Norse mythology, is there stories you'd like to address later when you are able to write longer novels that maybe would lend themselves to the short format that maybe, you know, double or triple the size of one of these books? For example, that stories that aren't maybe set in this world but further back in time or forward in time or a different part of this world or whatever it might be? Or
it's, for the most part, like there's a couple of books that I have in my mind at the moment. There's another series, like the first thing is like there's another series I'd like to do pretty much after this one, which goes over to the sort of more like the dwarven realms and their...
That was the most especially because of the world tree, you've got like different dimensions and
stuff
like that.
So this, and that's again, this is where that leads into sort of going suddenly, the you know, it's in many ways this one is sort of like the humans who've been stuck behind, you know, stuck in the city forever, suddenly going out and being like, oh, there's other things out here. Yeah, so there's more sort of going on with the dwarves side of thing, and then there's one of the main characters. It's interesting, like talking about like the amount of stories within Norse mythology. I want to like reference those a lot, but also there's a lot of the characters that don't have a lot of info about them that I actually find a lot more interesting. Yeah. There's the main one being the main one that I have planned for. He's like sort of the major sort of almost like central character to a lot of the, at least the Aesir stuff moving into Ragnarok, is Vali, who's essentially the last son of Odin and believed to be like the god of vengeance and one of the gods of war and all that sort of stuff. And to me, I looked at it and went, well, with Balder and Thor dead and Tyr dead, he's kind of the main one who's really fit to take over as a general, shall we say. And really the idea of this character who is a you know, sort of, as you would put it, quite literally born for war and raised as a soldier, suddenly being in charge of one of the greatest battles of all time is a very interesting one to me, especially dealing with, you know, like being, you know, the son of Odin, as some of you may have guessed from the first book, and as you will definitely get from the second book. I have my own opinions about Odin. But yeah, he's a nice guy. I will sort it out. You know it's bad when Wade tells you to shut up. But yeah, so having that as I sort of said, but then yeah, it's from here on, it's a lot of like at the moment trying to keep the ideas as dot points, and then going, cool, let's just focus on these bits, and then we'll figure that out as we get there. Yeah.
Two-part question. going back to the names of your characters. When you are introducing the characters that have not been seen before, how much of their names are potentially considered spoilers if somebody were to sit there with like a nice...
I would never, I don't use names that are like, if you were to know, essentially it's like, mainly if you were to know, it's more about a reflection on their character rather than, so again, we go back to talk about Bjorn. You know, if you know what, you know, if you know like Bjorn means bear, then you just, then straight away you read his description and go, oh yeah, this is a big dude.
Yeah.
Like this is a man, you know, this is a, you know, a brick house.
So it's not
But
subtle hinting of potentially like choices.
You're not going to have Simon the Betrayer.
yeah.
It's Connor the Betrayer. And part 2, how...
Devon the quite obviously evil.
Dragyn the self-insert. How much of your friends or family or the people that are close to you have been incorporated into your character, if any at all?
There
Choose your
are.
words carefully.
I know that very carefully played the fuckhead. And there's some similarities between that character and the character I know. Tame. Just wanted to know.
There are a number of characters that are both. Yeah, there are some characters that were very much. I can't help it, but there are some characters that I very much base on people around me. For the most, like, yeah, it's something that I've done. So there are not a huge amount in this one. I try to keep it, you know, much, and there may be more further down the track. And there's just inspiration around that I've been like, hey, that's an interesting thing to pull. That's an interesting to go with. I have, yes, been told, there's been a couple of my betaries who've just gone, hey, real quick, be careful, which I get, and but at the same time, like everything has been, I would say, has been, you know, sort of very much talking about the positive side of people and who they present themselves as, which I, you know, yeah, go on.
You mentioned wanting to do some like offshoot books, like with the A0 and stuff like that with Ragnarok. So have you had considerations to doing like solo books for some of the characters that may not get like their history fleshed out? What I'm really asking for is, when do we get an Orma book? Or a character book, whatever you want to do. Like, I'm happy either.
I would really love, like, there's part of my brain that would really love to do the story of the twins, to do Brock and Herrick's story, because I think that is one that and this is when, you know, people talk about characters taking on a life of their own. Herrick and Brock really took a yeah. There'll be this. Look, there's a lot of movement both ways that needs to. So yeah, no, 100%. Like there's, but there's things like there's a lot of stories that I have in my mind for the battles of Ragnarok and all the stuff that I'm looking at going, I don't know if I can make that a full book. So there's another. There was a character that I've had in my mind for a very long time. He's more from Himgard, so the modern day like TTRPG setting, but he sort of goes over. He's a dwarf by the name of Aristide Thaddeus Magnus Grubin III. I've gotten that name completely the wrong way, but that's all good. You get the idea. Who's essentially, for those of you who are into D&D, he's my world's version of Bolo, essentially. Like he's just written, like basically anything that you find, any information you find in the world, he's either written it or he's been cited. And there was a book I suddenly had this, I was thinking about this idea of having a book of him like going on, you know, like an adventure and finding this information, and then chopped into that a little short stories from Ragnarok of different bits and pieces he's finding, pieces of information. But yeah, so there are always more ideas in both directions, and yeah, so Brock and Herrick are ones that I was definitely like, that'd be really cool. Orma would be a really interesting one to look into as well. But yeah, did you have a question?
We should definitely do a vote.
No.
I vote for the Bullock's backstory.
Okay. We go Connor and then when we should probably wrap it up so we can do sale.
Purely fun hypothetical. The movie rights get picked up. Who do you choose to direct?
Is Peter Jackson still in business?
It would like if I had my choice of director, they like Peter Jackson getting Weta Workshop involved. I don't think I've seen a bad project come out of that crew. I will say that after PAX last year, I can say that the creative director at Weta Workshop Game Studio does have 2 copies of my book, which is very exciting. I'm sure the call will be coming through any minute. But yeah, no, I haven't gotten book 2 yet. But yeah, through a very crazy happenstance, I managed to get in front of him and managed to get 2 books, 2 copies of Berserker into his hand.
Well, as an extension to that, have you thought about how you're handling the inevitable lawsuit when Sony steals your ideas for God of War 3?
It is one of those issues where I imagine it is kind of one of those issues where I think there is a certain level when you look at Norse mythology, in my mind at least, when you look at Norse mythology through a modern mindset and with modern values and all that sort of style. There's a lot of common ground that you're going to come to. So like one same thing, like playing through the God of War games. There was obviously some shared, imagery or shared viewpoints especially surrounding like Odin and the Jotun and various other key characters that because if you really look at the stories from as I said, with modern values, with these ideals and more progressive ideals, you suddenly get are very much like, why are we doing this? Like, this is not a good person. This is not a great setup. So yeah, it's interesting, but so I think I'd struggle to prove that at the end of the day. But at the same time, yes, they will be hearing from my lawyer. All right, one more. Yes, wait.
If you had to write a book and it couldn't be inspired by Norse mythology, which mythology would you pick as a secondary?
Sumerian.
My brain, this leads to a very interesting point, which again, it's something that I've said 1,000 times, which is like when people talk about writer's block, and they're like, all I can think about is this. I'm like, cool, go write it. Go do it. Do it. Like this is creativity. Follow creativity. Do not force it. There was a point about halfway through redoing book 2 that my brain just woke up one day and went, you know what? A really, really cool Oni, Japanese demons, something that has no chance of being in your story at all. But they're cool. So I sat down and wrote like a whole bunch of like D&D stuff surrounding like Oni and that sort of thing. So I think, and that the Japanese like mythos and folklore is fascinating to me. Like the way that they're like almost that sort of like human demon relationship and sort of balance is very, very interesting. Like it's very much in that ideals of like, demons are everywhere and they'll just show up and you've got to throw cucumbers at them and then run away. That's a real thing, by the way. I'm not making that up. But yes, thank you all very much for coming. We're going to do something exciting, and then we're going to do a quick reading from one of the scenes that I've picked that doesn't really have any spoilers in it from book 2. It's one of my favorite scenes, at least. Thank you all very much for coming, and we'll get into it. This bit starts on 39. It's also one of the other bits I could find that doesn't give any too great of spoilers for book 1. To give context for this scene, essentially, they've just been the Berserkers have just been for mostly unfounded reasons, been kicked out of a bar and gone to find another dark bar to continue drinking. And now have sort of had a bit of a night of just like jovial fun with each other and a bit of teasing and joking thrown back and forth, and now walking home. And specifically, it's one of the first times that Malik recognizes sort of sitting with, specifically the main ones in the room are the other chiefs, so Bjorn, Ulfhedinn, and Herrick, and sort of recognizing the sort of that jovial energy that they bring out, which he's not used to in this moment. So where do I start here? Start at the end of page 38. So, strange as it was to see Herrick tease, to see him smile and laugh warmed my heart. Since the day I met him, he had been a stalwart and stoic figure, the very image of discipline and integrity. To sit with him now, to drink and laugh with all the chiefs, filled me with a joy I could barely contain. After my mother died, I thought I would never know this again, but sitting here now, I felt welcome, at home. As the night drew to a close, we finished our drinks and wandered home. Bjorn and Ulfhedinn walked arm in arm, singing loud, raucous songs as they stumbled clumsily through the streets. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable earlier," Herrick said gently, tucking his hands into his coat to the side, casually strolling next to me. "In the path we walk, it's easy to forsake our own happiness, the simple joys that life holds. It's the reason I try to treat all of our foes as I would my own kin." He took a deep breath through his nose, his eyes drifting calmly to look up into the night sky. "But love, Malik, do not forsake love. As the Lady Freya is the goddess of love and war, so must we acknowledge and recognize the importance of both, lest we be denied the joys of the life we fight to preserve." My mouth hung agape as I stared at the war chief, wide-eyed. "Where did that come from?" Herrick chuckled in response, his cheeks shining in the dim light. "I suppose my brother isn't the only one with a few skaldic talents." "No," I replied with a chuckle. "Apparently you just need to be 8 mugs deep to tap into yours." Herrick's laugh echoed through the streets. "I suppose so," he said, patting me on the back. "We are warriors first, Malik, but we are still people. Don't forget to enjoy your life." A smile curled my lips as we wandered through the night. The cold kept at bay by drink and company, though a dark thought now troubled my mind. The life I had now, I owed to berserkers, to Brock, to Herrick. But as I looked down the dark streets of the industrial district, another name came to mind. But yeah. That's as far as I can get without rolling book one. So yes, thank you all very much. That's one of the scenes as I get. I think I read that and was very much, that was sort of my like, how to put it, I was sort of like editing through my book, and I generally read through and do like, okay, I'm gonna highlight that and come back to it later so I can go through and edit it and all that. And I got to that bit, it was one of the first times that I sort of sat back and went, I'm doing all right. I was like, I can do this. So yeah, I was very happy with that. So I thought that would be a good one to read, just as a reminder. Again, for everyone, it's like, it is just as important to acknowledge when you have done something very well as when you might have stuffed something up. So yes, thank you all very much for coming. I genuinely hope you enjoy the book, and I will get the third one out as quickly as possible.
Next week?
No. Cool, well yes, thank you very much. That's it.